to see if maybe we could try and get on the long list to open for The Cure. But Robert Smith doesn't have a manager. He manages himself. So he replied to our manager being like, I hear you're looking for me. And we were like, ah!
So how are you, Lauren? Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, man. I'm good. I'm just in my house. I'm just in my house again.
as everyone.
Everybody is good, I think. I think I'm talking to the guys on the phone after this in like an hour. So I think they're good. Yeah, we've just been working on putting the album out, writing new stuff, and yeah, keeping busy.
Okay, so Lauren, once again, thank you very much for your time. I'm Pepe from sopitas.com. We're going to talk about the new CHVRCHES album, the process, the beginnings of the band, a little bit about everything. So are you ready?
That sounds perfect. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so Lauren, what's up with Screen Violence, your fourth album? How was that musical evolution that you had from Love Is Dead to this new album?
I feel like we started planning the album maybe summertime 2019, and we'd said, we'd kind of decided even before COVID that we'd wanted to go back to mostly self-producing. The third record was the first time that we'd done anything outside of the band in terms of writing and production, and I feel like we learned so much from that. But once we had the idea for the title, it seemed like something that we needed to do ourselves. And Screen Violence was actually a band name that we didn't use. And around the summer 2019, I'd been digging around through a bunch of archive stuff I had of the band, and I saw that name come up again, and I thought because of the imagery it evokes and because of what it seems like it could be about, maybe we should write an album off that. And that was the first time we'd named a record before we wrote it. All the other times we wrote the songs and then named it afterwards. And I do wonder what the album would have sounded like if we'd made it in the way we thought we were going to. Like Screen Violence 2019 sounds very different to Screen Violence 2020, I think. And yeah, I'm really proud of the guys because obviously we made the first two albums ourselves, but they did this one not even in the same place as each other, and I'm really grateful that they have that skill set, because you couldn't just go into a recording studio and make an album in the normal sense, and they mix it as well, which is quite rare. I don't know any other bands who mix their own albums. So yeah, and in terms of the writing, we had a couple of weeks in the same place in February, March 2020, and then obviously the world began to turn upside down, so everybody had to go home. And after that, we did all of it totally on Zoom and screen sharing technology. So a very bizarre way to make a record, but I think in a way it was good, because the enforced isolation made you think about different things and write different things.
Yeah, I can guess. And what, in your own words, what lessons did you experience as a band in those years between Love Is Dead and Screen Violence?
I think the lesson that I learned was that I feel like on Love Is Dead, I was trying to write stuff that was more esoteric and less personal, maybe. And I don't know whether I don't think that was like a conceptual choice. I think it was a self-preservation choice, because I kind of got to a place where I was uncomfortable with being like what I talk about and what happens in my life being the center of all songs. It felt strange to me, or I didn't like the idea that people would want to talk about your personal life and not talk about the songs. But I don't necessarily know if that was the best thing I did for my writing, if you know what I mean. So I think Screen Violence to me is like a good marriage of the two things, because it's conceptual and has this strong aesthetic, but the songs are still about personal things. And I like the idea that there's a lens that you can tell your stories through, but they're still your stories, if that makes sense. So I think I kind of knew going into the writing that I wanted it to be more open and more personal, but I think the Screen Violence concept really helped with the imagery and push it into a kind of stranger, darker place.
You said a few minutes ago that the album title Screen Violence came from an idea for the name of the band.
Yeah.
You came with us with a little bit of this story.
We met in 2011, the end of 2011, and I think it must have been like springtime 2012. We knew that we wanted it to be a real band, but we didn't have a name, and we'd been taking so long to figure this out, and we just eventually sat down and made a giant list of words that we liked. And there was a lot of good, okay ones, and there was a lot of bad ones. And Screen Violence was one we hovered over for a long time, and then I think in the end we thought it was too retro, like it was too specifically about 80s cinema, 70s, 80s cinema. And we thought that because the band sounded a bit retro, we didn't want people to think it was just like a deliberately 80s band. But it was always a phrase that I thought was really interesting. And I feel like almost 10 years later, the actual concept of screen violence means something else to me, and it means something else in the world as opposed to just the cinema it's talking about. But we're all such big movie dorks and horror movie fans specifically. Like, it's always been something. Like, there's a song on the first EP that we ever did, which is called Zool, which is about Ghostbusters and things like that. And then there's a song which was like a B-side on the first album called Broken Bones, which the lyrics are about the Amityville Horror and stuff like that. So I feel like this has always been something that's been in the background of churches, but we've never fully lent into it. And here we are. 10 years later, here we are. We did it.
Lauren, we want to know, how would you define the sound of screen violence and the songs we haven't heard yet compared to the past albums about this musical evolution? Tricky question, sorry.
No. I guess I feel like this is the best storytelling we've done in terms of, not just in terms of the lyrics, but in terms of like the soundscapes and there being consistency within the album as a whole. I feel like the other albums have been maybe like 90% consistent at best. There's never been a time where I've been like, all of these songs completely fit here and feel like they couldn't live anywhere else but on this album. And I think it's also been interesting because the mainstream pop space became really quite saturated with bands who used a lot of the same instruments as us. Like in 2012, when we started, the idea of synth pop hadn't really come back into popularity in the same way that it has now. So I think that was definitely something we grappled with on the third album. Now there's so many larger, more popular artists making that music in that space. How do we do that? Do you just try and make your sound bigger? Like I don't know if that was I don't know what the right thing is to do. So this time we tried not to think about how to stay afloat in that lane. We were just like, let's just take all the rules off that we normally apply to church songs. Like, oh, it can't have too much guitar. It can't have this. It can't be that long. It can't be about this. And we just kind of took those restrictions off. And there's definitely still synths on the record, but there's like, this is the first Churches album where there's like actual piano in a song that's not an interlude. And there's a lot more guitar. There's a lot more live bass. There's a lot more live drums. And I think it helped the songs feel more human in a way. Like, what I really love about my favorite Churches songs are always the ones that feel a little rough around the edges. And I think that's what was so good about the first album. And yeah, I feel like holding on, you don't ever want anything to be too shiny and too polished. So I think we were just figuring out how to do that now, if that makes sense.
I have to say, and we know it, this album came stomping. Its second album was nothing more, nothing less than with Robert Smith from The Cure. Surely in every interview everybody asks you about this, but I want to hear it in your own voice. What's up with the featuring with Robert Smith in How Not to Drown? How did it happen? How is it to work with him?
Honestly, I still can't really get my head around the fact that it did happen, because all three of us are such massive fans of The Cure and fans of Robert, and his songwriting, his lyrics, the way that he approaches his art is just so full of integrity and individuality. And I never thought that this would ever happen in my life, but yeah, it came about so weirdly. Like, our manager had heard that they're making a new Cure album. As we all know, all the fans are very excited. But yes, he had asked if somebody could pass his email on to Robert Smith's manager to see if maybe we could try and get on the long list to open for The Cure. But Robert Smith doesn't have a manager. He manages himself. So he replied to our manager being like, I hear you're looking for me. And we were like,
Hello, I'm Robert Smith.
Yeah, and he's like, I hear you're talking about me. What do you want? And then, yeah, our manager was like, I guess I'm talking to Robert Smith now. What do you want? And we're like, fuck, this is so scary. What do we? So we sent him some songs just so he could hear the new stuff, hoping that maybe if he liked it, he might take us on the road or something. And I feel like we never expected that he would get back and want to be on one of the songs. And I can confirm that he is just as wonderful as everybody thinks that he is. Like, he is so generous and creative, and he just made so much space and made sure he wasn't pushing anybody out of anything. And I just think so many people that are that like talented and iconic wouldn't think that way, but he still comes at it as from this very like thoughtful person in a creative group mentality. And yeah, I'm still blown away that it even happened.
I'm talking about collaborations, featurings. There's a Mexican singer that we love very much and who raised the name of Mexico. Her name is Silvana Estrada, and I'm pretty sure that you know her. What did you think of her Forever cover? Do you remember when you heard it for the very first time?
Honestly, last year we were so blown away by... I can't believe that during last year we ended up doing promo for a song that was an album track on an album that had been out for 2 years. Like, that's insane. And yeah, we were so grateful that people just connected with that song in such a natural way because they'd heard it on TV, and then people were like sharing it with their friends, and it got this whole second life that we never expected it to. And yeah, I always think that so much of the campaigning that British and American bands do is way too focused on English-speaking countries, and I think that's this weird kind of imperialist leftover. I don't know. Even when we list like release dates, and like you list the times based on American coasts and Britain, and I think that that's really bizarre because that's not necessarily where your fan base is. But yeah, hearing somebody translate our songs into another language, and it was so beautiful. I was like, oh no, she's done a better job than me. Oh no, I have to fire myself. But yeah, and I think it's just awesome to see when any music transcends in that way, especially when it's your own. Like, I still can't believe that. So we can't wait to get back and play these songs and hopefully see the results of that, because all of that happened during 2020 when nobody could go anywhere or do anything or see any live music. So yeah, we're incredibly grateful and very excited. And we've never met her in real life. We've only
never met Silvana Estrada?
No, it's just all on the internet. So yes, it'll be nice to do that in a physical space when we can.
Hey Lauren, so guess what? I have a surprise for you.
Is she under the table? No.
Yeah. You have to watch this.
Oh!
Yeah. Are you watching this? So,
yes, I'm ready. Yes.
Hola Lauren. Sopitas and Sopitas, this is Silvana Estrada. I'm really happy that you're releasing new music. I had such a great fun last year covering your song Forever in Spanish. And nothing, I just wanted to say thank you for your beautiful work. Have a nice day. Besos.
Oh, stop, you're trying to get me to cry on the Zoom. I won't. I won't. But yeah, I'm so excited to meet her. Like, her voice is so beautiful. I'm very excited to actually, and then to see her play. Like, I feel like I guess that's something we all learned last year, that I definitely watched so many live streams and I loved a lot of them, but there isn't really a substitute for live music and experiencing it in that way. So I'm very excited. I have a wish list of everybody who I want to see play, and she's definitely on it.
And what do you think about Mexican audience? What is your best memory of our country? You have a lot of fans around here.
Oh man, we cannot wait to come back. We talk about this pretty much constantly. Like, it's one of the only places where people make us as much fan art and meet us at airports and come to the hotels, and we don't really get that in other places. And the shows are always absolutely bonkers, like bonkers. And I think the first time we came, we were like, oh, no one's gonna have heard of us. I wonder what will happen. And that there was not just that there was people at the show, there's people at the show that knew every word to every song. And so many friends that we have in bands say the same. They're just like, there's no audience that is so full of true music lovers as there is in Mexico. So yes, we can't wait to come back. We're making plans, we're figuring it out. But yes, we're very excited to come.
Thank you very, very much for your time. Do you want to say something about Mexican people? August 27, am I right?
Yes, August 27th is when the album comes out, and we want to say just a huge thank you to our Mexican fans for being so kind and loving to us. And we are definitely planning ways that we can come see you, and we will let you know as soon as we can.
Thank you very much, Lauren, for your time. Hope to see you soon. Hope to come soon to Mexico, and have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. Be safe.